Hi, welcome to an early edition of Wild Speculations. I'm Daniel.
I'm Scott.
This evening we're talking about Critical Role Campaign 3, Episode 31, Breaking Point.
Yep.
Good episode.
We are now 2/3 of the way through your episode prediction from a couple weeks ago.
You know, I was thinking about that today. That I should just stop trying to make per episode predictions. But
And just make it arc.
Sure, but like then I was like, well, I mean, I gotta be wrong about something sometimes.
And really, you're not wrong. You just condensed the time frame this is all happening.
True.
And that's exactly why when you said all this stuff, I was like, are you sure it's going to all be in one episode?
So this is DM planning. And the perfect illustration of how the DM can plan for something and get multiple sessions out of that planning.
Yeah.
And why the advice exists never to plan too far ahead. The opening of the episode brought to mind Wash. Curse your sudden yet inevitable betrayal.
Yep. You know, I called that Ira was manipulating them.
You did. Yeah.
I knew he wasn't going to be just like this one-off fight turned hesitant ally.
So the possibility did exist that he became an Essek like ally, because Laudna and Ashton were like, I want to have drinks with this guy. I wanted to do it first.
Yeah. But I don't know. My gut just said no.
Fair. And I mean, like we talked about last time, is he as evil as Essek or more? And I think you're right that he is more.
Yeah. I mean, Essek was bad, but he didn't do anything out of maliciousness or to cause that. He just cared more about the pursuit of knowledge than he did about making sure, like Jurassic Park. He was more concerned about if he could than if he should.
Yeah. We get confirmation that Ira was working with the Unseelie Court.
Yep.
And that there are others looking into this. And that the crown going missing and him going rogue was a great asset to him.
Mm-hmm.
And they did manage to get out of him, who were these others that you speak of?
Yep.
And he said, Ludness.
Yep.
And Otahan.
Yeah. Hey, Rose, glad you could make it on the early time slot there.
I love that. Is it trapped? The device. Ollie turning it off. Which seemed to have saved Orm, because I think Matt was getting ready to ask him for a dexterity save.
Yeah.
Of some kind. Because that's what happens when you're crawling through a live electronic device. Electric shocks are possible.
Yes.
We get, I want to call it confirmation that Ruidus is surrounded by the Divine Gate.
Yeah, I kind of took it that way too. As they were talking that, I was like, oh, Dan was right. All right.
Now, I leave open that it could be a Divine Gate.
Yeah.
But I generally think it's the Divine Gate. So yeah. And I started thinking about it, and like, if Ruidus is tidally locked, then it could be the betrayers that always face Exandria, and the prime deities that are always facing away.
Yeah.
Taliesin was on fire this episode.
Yep.
About noticing things, Rose.
Taliesin / Ashton was my MVP pick.
Yeah.
Like, not even a contest this week.
Although I think the funniest moment for me was when Ashton smashed the lens. And Liam's like, point of order, I just have to say.
I was going to say, the funniest part was not him smashing the lens, it was the fact that nobody but him, Liam, and Matt clocked that he did this. And then Liam's like, just so everyone is aware, this just happened.
Wait, what?
And then Londa's, why are there always broken rocks around me?
Yeah. I mean, that was just sort of
and then the
cherry.
contemplation. Can someone cast mending? Or you can't mend a magic item. You can't break a magic item.
And then Matt.
Well, it depends.
Yeah. Yeah, Taliesin, yeah. Matt and Taliesin going back and forth about, well, in older editions, you got XP for that.
Yeah, that's how barbarians leveled up.
It's so good.
Which, later, when we get into the issue with FCG, I have a theory about the homebrew classes.
Okay. But Imogen does mend it.
Yep.
They toss Ira's place of rest.
Mm-hmm.
And Ashton breaks everything, investigating, except for a chest, which Birdie opens.
Right.
And there are gems. Gems! And all I could think about was, I think you said very early on, you mentioned how Imogen reminded you of the Gemstones cartoon.
Yeah.
Or Gem, I think was the name of the cartoon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, we're a step closer to that then.
Yep. Truly outrageous.
We have marks on Ira's map that seem to indicate the Paragon's Call have a base east of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And Ira's curiosity note was facing east.
Yeah.
And they think it could be the Sands location, something Sands.
Yeah.
I have I don't know. My feeling is it's going to be over the water. That whatever's going to happen, it happens.
Yeah. I think that makes sense because I think whatever's happening and possibly the way to the moon is going to be through the Netherdeep, which is in that area.
Yeah. Ashton, Taliesin, pegging. I think their memories have been altered.
Yep.
Which prompts the investigation. Which I haven't expressed a problem with the way that they've sort of done the detect thoughts, mind meld stuff. But this time, for whatever reason, and I'm not sure why, something about it was off to me.
Yeah.
And like I say, I don't know why, because it fits with everything they've done up until now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it just felt longer than what the duration would have allowed.
Gotcha.
Maybe that's my issue with it.
Yeah, but that's tricky. That gets into.
I mean, when you're talking the speed of thought.
Wibbly wobbly timey wimey type.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, you can have spend hours or days in a dream, and it's only a few seconds in real time.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why I say I don't have and I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It's just this time I don't know why.
Something off-putting.
Yeah. And maybe it's because they were diving into. They had the stated intention of going into two different directions, and then now we're together. Maybe that was it. Rather than we're both diving in, we can give each other advantage on stuff or whatever. So yeah. The foreshadowing of Fern's confrontation with her parents.
Yep.
When she's like, when Ashton's like, or Orem tugs on her elbow and is like, "Hey, be careful in there." No, continue.
Yeah.
Keep going. They have the discussion whether or not FCG should call Dancer for help about the telescope. And I think Imahara Joe is a better option.
Yeah. Especially after the call was placed.
Yes. But I thought that before.
Yeah.
Concurrent with the episode, I was like, just call Imahara Joe. You know he's in the city. You know where he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big thing, which I think is what Matt meant at the end of the episode, when he's like, sometimes you have all these things happening and they begin to converge, and then you begin to wonder when is it all gonna come together, and this was the episode.
This was the episode.
And I think sort of the kickoff to that was Imogen telling Fern, it's okay to be mad.
Yeah.
And sort of getting the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And also some projection, I think, from her.
Okay.
Because her mom has been gone, I think, longer than 6 years. But I'm not 100% sure on the timeline.
I think so too, and the reason I think that is because of the fuzzed out memories. We don't know how much time. We don't know if it was just that moment, or was it the week of them, or 2 weeks of them, or month of them talking about missing Fern and wanting to go back before they told Ira they wanted to quit, and then he's like, well, let me just erase this whole thought process. We don't know how big a time lapse those blurs are.
Yeah.
So I think it's 6 years that they're aware of, plus whatever time is blurred out.
Well, no, by the calendar, it's 6 years. And that's been their touchstone. They just don't remember all of it.
Okay.
But yeah, Rose, I felt bad for the Callaways too, because, I want to equate it to their realization that Mongo in Blazing Saddles has when Bart is interrogating him on why they want the choo-choo train to go through Rock Ridge.
Yeah.
And Mongo's like, Mongo just pawn in great game of life.
After the fact, I kind of think that. While I was watching it, the vibes I got were more when Joe Dirt confronts his parents, thinking that they just forgot him, and I was just waiting for that other shoe to drop where, like, no, we just, like, the whole time I was getting that vibe of Joe Dirt meeting his family, and did they really lose me on accident? Did they really look for me? After everything was said and done, I kind of was like, okay, no, that wasn't it. But in the moment, that's what my thought process was.
Right on.
Yes, very much the silence from Doctor Who.
Yeah. The path to hell is paved with good intentions. So, which also, like, Matt has done a good job of making some of the Fae villains, but also not.
Yes.
And this episode was a really good illustration of that. And the illustration of the idea that if you know going into negotiation with a fairy, you cannot get burned. Like if you know, just like negotiating with a devil.
Yeah.
If you know the rules going in, you can avoid getting burned so bad.
Yeah.
And the Callaways just seem to not think any of that applied to them.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
And well, Ollie said it, we're naturally selfish creatures.
Yeah.
And that sums up the Fae. Good, bad, indifferent, they're all inherently selfish.
Yeah.
Kind of like humans.
The culmination of the parental rage session was also kind of funny, where Ashton comes in and he's like, wait, are we getting angry about parents? Because I can get it.
Are we going to hit some parents? Whose parents are we hitting? All while maybe, 10 feet from Birdie and Ollie. What was going through their mind? Okay, so the rock guy with the big glass hammer is wanting to hit parents. As far as we know, we're the only parents in the room.
And they watched him destroy the object that presumably they gave their daughters up for 100 years for.
Yep.
He broke all of Ira's shit. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Legit. Chetney producing the doll. Or Travis.
Yeah.
I had stepped away watching that live. So I had thought Travis got up.
No.
Left and snuck back with that. But on my rewatch, no, he had it down there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, why.
I think it was just one of the next things he had to hand out.
But can we praise Ashley's object work?
Yep.
I think the crescendo of that bit was when Ashley put the head of it in her mouth. I don't think she's ever done anything more satory than that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was the lewd joking happening when she spit on the crotch.
Yeah.
And I loved when she finally decides, after yelling at the doll or whatever, to talk to her parents.
Mm-hmm.
And admit that she wants to hurt them, basically.
Yeah.
And all the passive-aggressive digs that, like, Laura and Marisha were just, like, secondhand, like, oh.
Yep.
But her saying, I'm a mom now, and all of them stopping those reactions and just like, what? Yeah. And then it turns into, he bursts into flames and throws flames, and then everyone's like, oh,
pet
yeah.
mom.
I kind of wish that we could have seen that drawn out more, and for Fern not to clarify in the moment, and wait for everyone else to, like,
yeah.
Wait, you're mad at your parents and you left your kid?
Yeah. Yeah, at first I was like, oh, please tell me that's how, like, the Morrigan let her come to the material plane. She left her kid with the Morrigan.
Yeah.
And the cycle repeats.
Yeah. And Rose, I was basically with you there too. I was like, wait, what? Because, it was like, how can you be mad at them? You did the same thing. But then it's like, isn't that what always happens?
Yep.
Parents traumatize, pass trauma onto child traumatizes their child.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time also that Orem realizes that he's the only stable person in this group.
Yeah.
That he doesn't have to worry about horrible shit happening because of him. Like everyone else now, it seems like he's just like, okay, this is just trauma town and toxic methods of dealing with it.
Yeah, and I think he realized that when Ashton pretty much called him out on that. So I think when he first started in with the...
yeah, that's true.
And then Ashton's like, hey, we're all fucked up. Only one of us is stable. I don't know why the fuck we have him. Because he's stable.
Everyone's like, well, every group needs one.
And then, because you kind of see them go, yeah. If that's exactly what I'm saying, we're going to go with this.
I don't know. Well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, functionally, he would basically be the new...
He's the conscious.
Yeah.
Who is the Pike.
Yeah.
Just passing the torch.
Yeah. I love that he decides to have a one-on-one with the leader, Imogen.
Yeah.
Who, much like Caleb not wanting to be the leader, is the leader.
Yeah.
And I think Ashton is the leader by way of Ford.
Yeah. No, yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
The backseat leader.
Yeah. who's content to let others lead until something happens that he feels is not.
But he's going to make the comments to steer that leadership in the direction he wants.
Yeah.
Much like Ford.
Yeah. So we see how what did Ford have, 18 or 20 charisma? Can play just like a 9, 8, no, 7. Because he's a -2, right?
6. He's a 6.
Yeah.
He's a 6 charisma.
So, yeah.
Because he has the second lowest stat. The lowest would be Laudna's 5 strength.
Yeah.
This campaign.
I don't know if anyone else heard "You Can Go Your Own Way" start blaring after Orym confronts Imogen.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about, Heart, and a lot of that is on her sort of playlist for Imogen, and that song sort of just popped in, and I was like, yeah, no, that's legit.
Yep.
We had a round of sendings, and got an answer to one of the questions that we asked previously about how is Matt going to handle appearances by Vox Machina people.
Mm-hmm.
We got a letter from Vax, or from Vex, and Laura read it. But this sending is different because it has to come right away. And I don't think it's fair or proper that Marisha should know what Keyleth knows. So I think that's why he didn't let Marisha respond. Although I did enjoy Marisha sitting off to the side, watching him play Keyleth.
Yeah.
And I could almost see her mouthing the words along.
Yeah.
And sort of giving almost a nod of approval at the end of the sending. I think a couple of his word choices sort of hit her a little wrong. They did me.
Fair.
It was Matt phraseology.
Yeah.
How Matt tends to voice learned, important NPCs, the vocabulary that he uses with them.
Yeah.
Where Keyleth may or may not have used that vocabulary, vernacular, as it were. But I think so much of what he did was perfect.
Yeah.
And that she enjoyed it so much. I mean, she's not going to say anything either way.
I think overall, it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Uh,
he did her justice.
Orym included a code phrase so that the Tempest would know it was him.
Yep.
And that code phrase was his staying the course. Orym sends to Dorian.
Yep.
And the response back is about the flying casino, or the piece of the flying casino.
Yeah.
And landing it was tricky. I'm wondering. So in campaign 1, after Pat Rothfuss guest starred,
Mm-hmm.
he sent a letter, and he recorded him saying it, basically. Do you think we get something like that from Robbie, since they have the sending stones?
It's possible. I think that when we do, it'll because Dorian's making an appearance again. I think he'll be back. Not soon, but before the end of the campaign.
Yes. I think we're going to get a callback to all the guest stars, just like we did in campaign 1.
Yeah.
During the Vecna battle. Whatever the final confrontation is.
Yeah, I think he'll be more like a Mary Elizabeth or Will Friedle type callback.
Yeah.
Where they were with them for a few of the, you know.
Yeah.
As compared to, like, Joe, who was there for part of the last episode.
Yeah.
Just long enough to steal the hand.
And the big one for the cast at the table, FCG messaging dancer. Yeah. And her implying, lose my number.
Yeah.
And Travis writing in his book and showing Marisha so he would have a witness that FCG killed what you've been saying for a long time. That FCG killed everybody.
Yep.
And him not being too fond of that outcome.
It was a big episode for me.
Yeah.
Called Ira, called Lewdness, called FCG.
Yeah. And Fern, the final thing, which I think is why Orem blows up the way he does in the morning. Fern. He sees Fern cutting down the rocks and planting them.
Yeah.
Which we have a bit of a funny thing. About did their love create this? Her puppets. Did her puppets give birth to this?
Yeah.
I'm wondering also, before we get to Killbot, Travis has to be stashing stuff all over the studio.
Yeah. You can do that when you're the CEO.
Fair. I just loved Ashley, like, what? Like, she was genuinely, like, shocked. Like, what are you... How? Because he comes back with 3 more dolls. Mom and Pop Calloway.
Yep.
Yeah. So good. The return of Delilah.
Yeah.
And the stone going dark after Laudna touches it. And the admission from Delilah, if you die, I die too.
Yep.
Do you think that's true or a lie?
I think it's a lie, but I think it's still bad for her if London dies.
Okay.
Like she might just be lost somewhere.
But the final thing in this episode, FCG.
So, first thing, mechanically, we figure out what's happening.
The stress points.
Stress points are what they're called. And so, basically, I take part of your damage, becomes temporary hit points. If I don't get hit to expend those or use them as damage, if I don't work out this trauma that I'm taking from you, it builds up until I explode. And it's basically, what if the cleric was a barbarian? And then I got to thinking, Ashton is the barbarian powered by Dunematic. So it's, what if the barbarian was a wizard and what if the cleric was a barbarian? The barbarian fueled by Dunematic magic.
Yeah.
And then the cleric that ends up raging if they're...
Yeah. I loved Travis's reaction to all of it.
Yeah.
He's loving every minute of it. And I dare say, when he went to hit him with the mallet, that's what he was hoping would happen. And when it happened, he was so overjoyed.
Yeah.
And I love that, like, both Travis and Chetney both were excited by the happenings. For different reasons, of course. But so good. Laudna and Fern going in for the kill.
Mm-hmm.
Little shocking. And I think what she used was a new 3rd level spell.
Okay.
Class features tend to not do that kind of damage.
Yeah.
It sounded to me more like a spell.
Yeah, no, it definitely did.
And 4d8 is about right for a 3rd level spell. Because harm is 2d10 or 3d10.
So I'm not sure. I mean,
Upcasting it, you can get more d10s. But yeah. So I think that's sort of where they were going with it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Other than harm is not on the spell list. So which is a good way to... I want a spell like this that's not on my spell list. So let's change it a little bit, call it something else, and ta-da!
Yeah.
Fern casting heat metal was funny. And I was like, oh, this is not going to end well. But it did answer a question that we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
If you cast heat metal on an automaton, does the automaton take damage?
Yeah.
The spell doesn't say the suit of armor takes damage.
Yeah.
Or the sword takes damage.
But if I light you on fire, do you take damage?
Yes. I don't know. Just an interesting...
Yeah. No, definitely.
...way to handle it. Sam revealing his notes.
Yes.
That he's been taking. His ultimate callbacks. And I think this is a result of what he saw Liam do last campaign.
Mm-hmm.
With not only the tower and the
program delusion,
but the program delusion, I think, is the big one. And this is just his way of taking that idea another step. And of course, to the trolley dark side.
To the Sam side.
He attacks Laudna. You were never alive.
Yep.
Says to Fern, your parents didn't want you.
Yeah.
He didn't really go for any sort of deep cut on Chetney, aside from conjuring his spiritual weapon to be a chisel.
Yeah.
So I look forward to when FCG learns something personal and potentially hurtful for Chetney. But it also makes me wonder if the group doesn't stop confiding in him.
Yeah.
Ashton bringing them together is what sealed it for me for MVP.
Yep.
And like you say, it wasn't so much of a close call.
Yeah.
And really, the end part is what really made it not a close call.
He was in the lead the whole way, and this is just where he sprinted ahead.
Yeah. We're all in this together. Which leads into when Orem sort of snaps and confront and says his piece. He's like, you have to be better together.
Yeah.
Watching it live, I wanted to compare it to Captain America, but I don't think that's accurate. It's closer to how Tony, I think, viewed the Avengers.
Yeah.
We're better together than we are separate, because separately, we're all a mess.
Yeah.
Which is a common theme in all of the campaigns, one-shots.
D&D in general.
Yeah. And Marisha's observation that shit always gets real around episode 30.
Yeah.
Which is something we were talking about last time.
Yeah.
That if you're looking at 100 to 120 episode arc, episode 30 should be about when Act 1 is coming to a close.
Yeah.
And I think this episode just sort of helps propel that idea forward even better, even more.
Yeah. It's where they're not just traveling together out of convenience, but between Ash and Orm, that was we are a unit.
The threads that bind us have brought us together, and we're the only people in this position that know what we know, can do what we can do.
Have seen what we've seen. Yeah.
Yeah. It's up to us to do the thing, whatever that thing is.
Which puts them squarely in the middle of the Mighty Nine and Vox Machina. Whereas Vox Machina was all about the heroics.
Oh, yeah.
And the Mighty Nine was like, we really don't want to. Do we have to? And they're just like, we're here, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Matt making the joke that everyone was rude as born.
Yeah. Which we made that joke. Plot twist, they're all rude as born.
Yeah. Much like so much of the changes in D&D 1, I'm like, hey, I've been doing that already.
Yep.
It's nice to see your jokes also appear. What do we think for the first Thursday in September, since there's no episode this week? I mean, they're going to go back and see Otahan.
Mm-hmm.
It occurred to me that they might try to negotiate for Treshy.
Yeah, that was my thought as well.
And use the telescope as their bargaining chip.
Yep.
And where we had been, much like the cast, I think, assuming going into that confrontation encounter that it was going to be violent, this episode turned that a little on its head a little bit.
Yep.
Where they hate Ira now, and Otahan is an enemy of Ira.
Yep. The enemy of my enemy.
So it's a matter of is Orem willing to play ball with her if she is in league with lewdness?
Yeah.
And that was a funny thing. That was great at the table. When he's like, do I know anything? I mean, I might. Yeah. Just because he's been in the service of Keyleth. It's a legit, he might know. And Matt said, make a history check. Natural 20. And Matt tried to steer Liam into what level of knowledge he had. And I think Liam too quickly may have let too much of Caleb in.
Yeah.
And look, this guy's bad news. You know, the Empire, the dark place, scary place. And Travis being like, it's nice to travel through. Yeah, I'm still, and I'm curious if Lewdness's interest in the beacons wasn't just for Dunamancy.
Yeah.
If he may have actually had a faith-based interest.
Yeah.
In them.
It is possible.
That he knows something of the imprisonment and whatnot. Also, something occurred to me that this could be the 10th apogee solstice since Avalier blew up.
Okay.
Because it's been 840 something years.
Roughly, yeah.
As they're counting the calendar, which I think starts at the end of the Calamity, how they view the rebirth of Exandria.
Right.
And the Calamity is thus far sort of an amorphous time period of between a century or two.
Yeah.
And if an apogee solstice is every 100 and change years, 110, 112 years, that would make this like the 10th one.
Yeah.
Those kind of numbers tend to be significant. And it could be the divine gate wasn't built by the gods. The divine gate could have been built by the surviving arcanists trying to drive divinity out. And they may have had help from some of the prime deities,
right,
in getting the knowledge and doing it. And maybe that's one of the like we discussed how Ioun, maybe it wasn't a betrayer that wounded her, maybe it was prime deity.
Yeah.
And maybe because she let loose the knowledge of how to make the divine gate.
Yeah.
So if that's an aspect, then that also might be why lewdness is involved, because he wants to keep them there. Where the Unseelie court seems to be in the camp of, how can I get either get that power, take that power. They don't seem interested in preserving or tearing down the divine gate, other than it's sort of hinted at that the rise of the divine gate made passage between the Feywild and Exandria harder as well.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's some interest in destroying it for that reason. Yeah, I don't know. And Otahan has yet to reveal her interest, which I think is what has to be Imogen's goal.
And I had a crazy thought the other day on one of my rewatches, and so Marvel has done this a couple of times in the comics with Asgardians, and every couple of decades when they try to reboot the Eternals. And that's that they're all living normal lives. A lot of times with the Asgardians, they don't know that they're gods. They've been, kind of stripped and have to regain their power.
Mm.
What if Otahan is the recreation, the non-divine recreation of one of those gods, and unlocking that gate would restore her power?
Yeah.
The lost god walking the earth. I don't know that it's going to be, but I was like, that would be an interesting thing. It was where that would be an interesting take, then I think this is going to happen kind of thought, but.
Yeah, so I don't know. The level up has to be coming.
It's got to be. And like I said, 2/3 of what you predicted would be one episode with the level up at the end of that episode.
Yeah.
So, get back, because it's milestone. Deal with the Peregrine's Call Treshy thing, whether it's negotiate or devolves into a fight. All right. You guys did the things. Now level up.
Yeah, and I can see that taking the whole episode.
Yeah. It might take the whole episode, it may take 2, depending on how they drag out, how much they plan or don't plan.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. At the rate they're going, it's going to be next episode with what you predicted versus how they're pulling it out episode by episode.
Yeah.
But I think, while we weren't on target, because you had said the first episode, I had said the second, with when that level up was coming, because I thought it was going to take a little longer. Story arc wise, we're still on track.
Yeah.
For when that level up comes. Because we both agreed on story-wise when the level up would come. I just thought it would take longer, and it's taking longer than I even thought.
Yeah. Anything else?
No,
that you want to talk about?
don't think so.
Okay. Then real quick, I'm going to have to beg your forgiveness and leave a little early, guys. I have 105 miles to travel and 90 minutes to do it. So, next week we're going to talk about the 1D&D UAs. And hopefully that following Thursday we will get some answers.
Yep.
Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll see you guys next week.
I guess.